Hey, good evening. Welcome to the Alliance for Safe Kids Ask Around Yorktown program. I'm Art Lander, and I'm the Director of Special Projects for the Alliance for Safe Kids. Tonight my guest is Detective Brian Shanahan from the Yorktown Police Department. Brian and other members of the department have been conducting compliance checks on our local alcohol businesses and restaurants on a regular basis for the past 5 years. And today I wanted to have him come in and discuss about the compliance checks that we do and how they work and where they're actually working and some of the inside information on what we do. With the Alliance for Safe Kids, we've been partners with the police department here in town of Yorktown for the last 5 years on the compliance checks, and we are the recipients of a federal grant. This is our 5th year in the federal grant cycle, and the monies from the grant go to pay for the police department to conduct these compliance checks. And also the money is also used for drug investigations and investigations dealing with underage drinking. And so Brian is involved in it and has been with us for the 5 years doing it. So Brian, a little bit about compliance checks. What are they actually? What's the makeup of compliance checks?
Sure. Again, well, thank you for having me here tonight.
My pleasure as always.
It's always a pleasure to come down here and speak to you and everybody on behalf of the police department, talking with the Alliance for Safe Kids folks. Our compliance checks are basically making sure that everybody who sells alcohol in whatever capacity, whether it's a bar restaurant, whether it's a grocery store selling alcohol at a cash register, or a convenience store, gas stations, things along those lines, the compliance checks are there to make sure that the people selling, the cashiers, the sales clerks, the bartenders, the waitresses, waiters, that they are making sure they ID. We want to make sure that we have our town in 100% compliance with all of the laws, and that being you can't sell alcohol to a minor, anyone under the age of 21 here in New York State. So what we do as a police department is a couple of fold. We work hand in hand with you to do some training and educate the consumers, educate our bar owners, educate the people working at grocery stores, people working at the convenience stores. We run a couple of education programs a year to make sure they know what they have to do and how to spot fake IDs, how to ask for the ID, make sure they check the ID appropriately, make sure they know it looks like a valid ID, whether they use it through the scanners or whatnot, which we'll talk about in a little while. Mm-hmm. And then we make sure that the education is in place and is working properly. We go out as a police department to do the enforcement end of it, which we'll talk about, get into more detail as we go along. But basically we have a underage youth with us. There's no tricks about it. It's an underage teen that will go out with us and attempt to purchase alcohol, whether sitting at a bar or at a convenience store. And we see how well the sales associate does. The
kids that you use, the underage informants or whatever you want to call them, CIs in this case, they are trained. I don't know whether people should know this, that they are trained for that purpose, to Correct. Go into the store and to, there are some guidelines that you follow mm-hmm. when you're doing that training, and I know that one of them is that they use their own ID and they're
That's
not
correct.
supposed to be, they don't lie about their age. And if they're confronted by the store owner, in reference to it, that the sale is done and that's it.
Yes, they not only they train, but the officers that are involved right. in whatever the compliance check is are trained as well. We are certified in both Connecticut. For some reason, Connecticut holds an awful lot more enforcement education programs for police officers,
yes.
which certifies us just as well as New York.
Right.
We're certified in Connecticut and New York. And what those certifications is exactly the same way. We need to train the people that we're going to use to do the compliance check. They teach us the best programs to use for training the vendors, right. And show us how to be a team, make this a team effort. And for a group like yourself with the Alliance for Safe Kids, how we can all work as a team and really reduce the amount of underage alcohol sales in Yorktown, which in turn saves lives. Our biggest thing, again, and before we go further, because we're going to talk an awful lot about what we do and how we do it, it's not all about the enforcement. It's not about enforcement. It's not about making revenues from fines.
Right.
It's about saving lives. And we've had too many tragedies here in Yorktown. We've had too many tragedies all over our area.
Right.
And we want to reduce the drugs in Yorktown. We want to reduce the amount of alcohol that it gets in the hands of people under the age of 21, and really be responsible with the way we handle our alcohol sales, especially, which we're going to talk about tonight.
I remember when we first started the program, I was still working with you guys, and when we first went out, that first time we ever went out on the grant, we went through and we only did 13 establishments. I think there's over 50 in the community today that are either on premise or off premise that sell alcohol to the public. And we just did 13, and out of the 13, no one passed. I think it's a real achievement on behalf of the police department and also the community itself too. And I have to give kudos to the general public here who work with us. All of our retailers and our alcohol sales people have really fallen into the program. They like it. The Alliance for Safe Kids has what's called an adopted store program, and we'll go over that later. But now in the 5th year of the program, we don't find that we have any arrests, and which is not based on the fact that they're not selling or not. They're dealing with the problem of underage drinking in a responsible manner.
That's
and they're checking IDs, and this is what it's all about, you know. And so there's quite a bit that goes on behind the scenes with this kind of an operation, and we've done very well. So, you know, how do you conduct this?
Well, on that note, and that shows that we're doing our jobs, that the Alliance is doing their part, and our underage volunteers, the youth that are coming in to help us out to help conduct these compliance checks, are doing their job. And as are all the vendors. The vendors are doing a phenomenal job IDing people. They've got their signs up. If you go into any of the convenience stores here in town, you can see signs. If you just look around somewhere near the cash register, you're going to see a sign that says, we ID, if you're not born before this date on whatever year, right, we're not going to sell. We ID people that are, look 50, whatever. There's a lot of great signs out there, and there's a bunch that have the logos from the police department and the Alliance,
right, showing
that these are vendors that are taking responsibility for keeping their town and community safe. But getting into it like a night, if we're going to do a compliance night where we will have generally 2 or 3 police officers that are involved in this, whether they be detectives or officers, what have you. It's the ones that are trained to do these compliance checks. And we will have generally 1 or 2 of our underage youth. And we start off at the police station. We make photocopies of their IDs to show that what their true age are and what their true identity is. And we give them some buy money, if you will, where we supply them with monies that they need to purchase the alcohol with. And for example, let's say our first stop is going to be a convenience store. We obviously are not in uniform. We're dressed down, maybe a nice bright shirt like you're wearing today.
Just like this, I'm sure.
That might bring a little bit more, might bring a little bit more attention to us rather than what we're looking for. But we generally have the officers go in, at least 1 officer in, keeping complete surveillance of what occurs from the time that our youth walks into the establishment and goes to the counter to purchase alcohol, and to see exactly what occurs so we can put that in our reports and testify to that. Many times we have the youth wired up with a microphone that we can listen to what's going on as well. So somebody who's outside, we have an officer inside who's watching what's happening. Someone outside could be monitoring the audio, what is going on conversation-wise between the vendor and our youth. And we wait to see what happens. The youth will walk in, generally pick up a 6-pack of beer or some type of alcohol, walk up to the counter, and wait to see if they get ID'd. Now, years ago, like you said, there were many times they'd take a quick look. They look old enough to me. It's okay. They sell. Now, based on all of the enforcement and education that's taken place in this town, people are taking that responsible action, and they're asking for the ID. Now, one of the problems is sometimes we get people who get lazy, and they assume if the person's handing them the ID, well, if they're handing me an ID, they must be 21, so they do a quick look, and they sell it anyway. That, unfortunately, would result in a summons or arrest at that point for that vendor. But most of them are very good. The ones who have taken part in our training, we show them what to look for. We don't expect that they're going to be police officers, that they can take out fancy lights and all sorts of gadgets to check to see if that license that they're giving them or the ID that they're giving them is valid. But We have a tremendous tool in the New York State Lottery, which their machines can scan most driver's licenses to verify if it's a good license and if that person's under 21, over 21 rather. And it's up to the vendors too to take a look at the photo and if they have a question, they have the right as a vendor. It's their liquor license that's on the line. They have a right as a vendor to deny a sale, to say, hey, this doesn't look good enough to me, or can you give me a second form of backup? Can you give me a credit card or something along the lines with your name on it so they can match that? It's their license on the line.
Right.
And that being said, along with our youth and the police officers that are there, a lot of times we work hand in hand with the State Liquor Authority, who is the ultimate authority who oversees the licensing of establishments that sell liquor, whether it's a convenience store that's selling it over the counter or you're sitting at a bar or restaurant. They control that. And the fines are very hefty. I have testified at several of the State Liquor Authority, the SLA, we call them, the SLA hearings. I've testified at many of them. And they are very lengthy, they're very detailed, and the ultimate result, if a vendor is found to be guilty of selling alcohol to a minor, could be several $1,000s in fines.
Now, the subject that is making the sale is usually arrested for a violation of the ABC law.
Correct. The ABC is the Alcohol Beverage Control Act.
And that they're going to be charged with that. But I don't think a lot of people know that the actual corporation that runs the store also is getting a summons and also being charged with that at the SLA level.
Correct.
So there's a twofold purpose to the enforcement of that.
Correct. And the vendors themselves, and when I'm using the term vendors just to be very general in the term. That includes everybody. That includes your grocery stores. That includes your convenience stores. That includes your actual liquor stores, your bars. So when I'm talking vendors, I'm talking everybody across the whole of the gamut. And like you said, I think there's over 60 establishments, if not close to that 60 number, in the town of Yorktown. And again, the town of Yorktown is everybody. It's Mohegan, it's Sherbrooke, it's Jefferson Valley, it's Yorktown, it's part of Crampon, the south part by Kitchewan. So it's encompassing everybody. So it's a lot of restaurants, a lot of places that are here. It's a lot of places that we have to look out for. I know you had a conversation with somebody on a county level. We're proud of what we do, and we're going to continue doing it because there's not a lot of towns in Westchester that do what we do.
Right.
I know Cortland is very proactive in pursuing things along the lines when we talk about compliance checks. But there's not a lot of towns who, A, don't have the trained officers or trained youth to do it, don't have the financial backing to do it. It doesn't cost that much. It really doesn't. A lot of the officers who do this at times are already working. They're already on their regular pay and adding this in as part of their duties as well. Again, everybody's strapped. Yorktown's no different than any other town. We are doing a lot more in our police department with a lot less. But this takes priority because this obviously has positive effects. With all the negative stuff that has happened in this town, this is what we need to be concentrating on.
Well, that's one of the reasons why the federal grant with the Alliance for Safe Kids runs is a recipient of it for the last 5 years, is that the funds that are coming out of that are paying for the use of the guys to do this job, which we feel is a very important part of policing, our community policing aspect of everything here. The stores themselves, I have to say that the restaurants have really jumped on now. We've made really good friends with the restaurants. The Alliance has, and so has the police department, because of our event every year, the Taste of Yorktown, which we have this year will be October 1st at the Yorktown Fire Department parade grounds, and all the restaurants that are in part of that. So we actually do a training with the restaurants and with you to instruct the restaurants on serving, and it's very important. And we just came back. Myself and some of the other officers just came back from in Peekskill, and they had a training for this SLA out there, and we were all certified to go. Again on this whole topic, and it was a very good class. Brought out a lot of stuff. There was probably over, I was going to say about 100 people showed up to it, a lot of the local restaurants. I happened to look at the list to see who was there. They were all from the Peekskill and the Cortland area. The Alliance for Safe Kids is planning to have a training very soon, and we will be announcing it on our website and also in the press.
That's something definitely to look out for.
Yeah, you have, this is on a regular basis this check that you do, and not only on a regular basis, but also there are special holidays and times of the year that you're out there doing this.
Correct.
And what would they be?
A lot of times they coincide with, and another one that's coming up, it would be like July 4th. We try to get it out there July 4th. And what also goes hand in hand with all of this is when we go out to do the compliance checks, there's also a lot of increase in drug enforcement when we can,
right.
Especially during the times that we're do the compliance checks, because a lot of times you will see in certain establishments that drugs could be a part of the background scene of certain establishments as well as the alcohol. So we look into that as well. It's a big effort to piece. Sometimes we will actually see the old term raid. You'll see a raid. And it's very rare that happens anymore, because you're not trying to trick anybody. You don't want to disrupt business any more than you have to, but you want to make sure that they're in compliance. And if we do get complaints or concerns that there's a lot of underage drinking, we will close the place for a half hour, stop everything, put officers in every exit entrance, and go through and check everyone's ID and make sure that people are not intoxicated, aren't being served intoxicated. And I have to say, it's been very, very positive, because a lot of people have been compliant. I won't say everyone's been compliant, but there's been a lot of businesses that have been very compliant. And a lot of that has to do with this partnership with the Alliance for Safe Kids for the training aspect of it. In the beginning, like you said, there was only a few bars and restaurants that maybe they sent a manager or one person down. Now, they actually fight. We overload the room when we do the trainings, because they want to send all their bartenders and waiters and waitresses that they can, so that people know, and their staff at the convenience stores as well, so that people are well trained, so they know what to look for. Because that also too, we certify each of the businesses in town with, there's a certificate on the wall that they've been through the Alliance for Safe Kids and the police department training, so that the people will hopefully, frequent those establishments as well, to know that they are trying their best to be in compliance with all that's going on. Going back to one of the other things that we do on the compliance checks is, I remember a few years ago, we had a group from one of the schools, colleges come up.
Yes, it was Wake Forest College.
Right,
so we were part of that grant. They were actually here, and what they did was they were coming to examine, how we ran the program and make a recommendation to the federal government. And I remember, because I was working with you then.
Yep.
And that was when we did the shoulder tap program.
Correct, and that's what I was going to get into, is the shoulder taps. I believe we were the only ones on the East Coast that were doing the shoulder taps. And what the shoulder tap was going into mainly gas stations and convenience stores. And again, some people may misinterpret this that it's entrapment. It's not. This is trying to educate our public to not help with underage drinking, but rather let's help reduce it. And the shoulder tap would be a young person walking up to someone maybe pumping gas or hanging outside of a liquor store, pumping gas at a convenience store, and tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, can you do me a favor? If I give you some money, can you go in and buy me some alcohol? Fortunately, there was not many arrests, but there was two during that time period where it was unfortunate, where people thought that they were doing the right thing by helping out this kid, not realizing the ripple effect and how that could really damage a youth, or where that was going. Where was that youth taking that? Was he going to a party now? And was that going to increase the amount of alcohol at a party? So that's something else that we do occasionally. We'll do, and that's something that we have to videotape and audio tape and the whole bit. There's a lot more that goes into the shoulder taps end of it, but that is something also we do with the compliance checks.
I know now that the police department Sergeant Mikey Zajac is in charge of the SLA referrals now.
Correct.
And he's been doing a great job.
Phenomenal.
I've spoken to him personally, and we've met. We've gone out on one occasion, to do a compliance check. And once in a while, I am allowed to go with you. He's been doing a good job making sure that that these restaurants know, and also the other establishments know, that it's not only their area of responsibility is not just inside the building, it's outside in the parking lot. It's adjacent to the rear of the building, and he's been going around making sure that that this information is given to them, that they have to understand it's not just inside. If something's happened outside, you have to take responsibility and help fix that, or not have that created in the beginning. And that's one of the things that you guys have been doing by going out and speaking with them on a one-to-one basis, which is what you do.
Correct, and it is. And you know what, that's a learning process too. For years, Times have changed. They really have, and technology has helped with that. And what I mean by that is we have a lot more surveillance cameras. We have a lot more pieces of equipment that can help with checking IDs and things along those lines. And it brings everybody up to a different standard when they're dealing with running a business and the liability aspect of things as well.
Right.
We had a bar in town here that we knew it's no longer in business, but we knew that every weekend, because of the clientele that they decided to have there and the fact that they were trying to make a quick buck and not worry about IDs or things along those lines, and they were letting everybody come in, and it was nothing but problems. And every weekend we would have a major crime happen, whether someone was stabbed or someone was hurt or there was an assault of some sorts, and it was constant. These are the things we don't want to happen. We learn from that, and that's when we say, you know what, we don't want to destroy businesses, but we want our businesses to run themselves properly, and that's why we have to do some things such as compliance checks and the safety aspect of things. Sergeant Zychek, since he has taken over the whole alcohol beverage control stuff, he is doing a phenomenal job. He goes through all of the reports that have to do with any type of nuisance of noise or alcohol-related issues with bars, restaurants, or convenience stores, and he compiles a good list, and he really gets a target zone as to where are the problems, where are there issues that we need to really educate people, where are the issues that we need to do more enforcement. And he sits down, he charts it all out. I sit with him many nights, and we get it together, and we do what we have to do to keep people safe in this town. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. It has nothing to do with picking on anybody. It has nothing to do with treating anybody different because we don't like a certain business. It has to do with keeping people safe. And when we see that there's an issue with it, that's when we step in and we have to do something.
We've been very fortunate. What we do here in Yorktown has been a model for other places. I know that Brian and I have spoken, and this will be actually we're supposed to be going to. We've been invited back for a third time to a national conference in August 10th in Florida at Orlando for the National Alcohol Enforcement Officers Association. And this will be our third time that the Yorktown Police and the Alliance for Safe Kids have been at a national conference to speak on what we do here. And our program itself has been very successful, and thanks to a lot of hard work, and of course our 2 E's, education and enforcement. And now we're now into a new mode too. We have what's called, our program is an Adopt-A-Store program. And the Adopt-A-Store program from the Alliance for Safe Kids aspect of it is that working with the police department, we want to make a program there's a program in nationwide called Cops and Shops. And that program is where local law enforcement officers are in a store, in an alcohol-related place, and they are in there for the purpose of them making an arrest. They're in there they're not going to check the ID personally, but they're going to watch the people that are coming in, and they actually are in there. Our program is a little different, where we're going to have officers who are specially trained in uniform to go into the stores, meet with the store owners, and discuss past compliances, whether they passed or not, talk to them about tips on things that are happening in other communities, because that's one of the networking processes that we have. And they're also going to talk to them about situations that might be happening in their store. They might be seeing things happening in the parking lot. They may see, high traffic at certain times. A little police information is always good for both sides of the coin here, especially in the alcohol sales business. So that's what we're doing, and I know that you are going to Florida, and I know that you're hopefully this whole program will get up and running with the Adopt-A-Store as we go into the summer months.
Yeah, and I hope as like we did for the last 5 years, I hope we're able to really watch the stats and see how the positive changes happen with the Adopt-A-Store program, and maybe go back to another conference 2 or 3 years from now and say, hey, here's the success of this program. And it's amazing when we go to these conferences, and you've seen it too, that you've seen groups that are really gung-ho, really do a good job, but fizzle out after a year or two because their programs don't have the support like we have. They don't have programs like the Alliance for Safe Kids in their communities. They don't have police departments with a juvenile bureau that was willing to work hard with the education aspect of the underage drinking enforcement. So we were lucky that way in Yorktown, that we have all of that, and a good team that continues to work as that. Even though everybody's strapped sometimes, we still work it, we make it happen. The Adopt a Store is going to be a great program. You're going to see, and you know, what's the famous joke? You're a retired officer, I'm still, you know, active officer. The big joke is, you know, the cops with the donuts and the cops with the bagels and the coffee. You know, and that's great. That's a funny joke. But what people don't realize is when they see the cops in certain stores, the convenience stores, especially at night, because they're the ones that are open a lot of times 24 hours, getting a cup of coffee and hanging out, it's not that they're being lazy. It's that they're watching what's going on. They're watching
Absolutely.
how the sales are. They are many times watching the purchase of alcohol take place and going out another door and speaking to somebody and saying, hey, can I see your ID? You know, and identifying themselves. I know I've done it. I know our officers do it. And that's a good part of leading into the Adopt a Store, where now the officer who's familiar with his sector, because Yorktown is split up into 5 sectors. We are 42 square miles. It's a huge area that we cover, and a lot of times, you know, there's only 4 police officers on the road, and you know, we're shorthanded and short-staffed that way. But we're hoping that we can get all those officers on board and trained. Also, it's going to be a big part of it to get trained also to be very active in going in and saying, hey, what are the issues? What can we do to help? Because that's what we're there to do.
Yeah, we've actually had members of ours, community members, who have come to us that have read the reports in the newspaper of the releases on who's made the sales, and have gone personally to these stores and told the owners that they will not shop there anymore because of this incident. So there is an effect that takes place that is really widespread once it gets going, and that's something that we really are very proud of, that we've had members come in like to do that.
And in turn, the positive is to say, hey, they are doing a great job.
Right.
And we do. We congratulate them. When we get a good compliance check, we tell a lot of times, and I kind of get my bosses a little upset because we blow our cover, but it's not like, you know, we're a huge city. We're, you know, with hundreds of police officers, only, you know, less than 50 here. I will go up to a sales associate and say to them, great job, I'm glad you ID'd, nice work. And you know what? They feel good about it. We tell their bosses and the owners of the business that. And you know what? At some point, we may be able to get to a recognition status where we could put a sign or a certificate in a certain business in town and say, hey, these people are constantly compliant. Here's a good place to shop.
All right. Now, if someone, the general public, sees some underage drinking problems taking place or some sales, they could call the TIPS line at the police department, right? And that number is 962-TIPS.
That absolutely they can call any time. You're going to get a recording, and if you leave a message, you don't have to leave your name. They can leave information there. And they can also call the police department itself, 962-4141,
right,
which is the main line. They're going to speak to a live person, and they can speak to somebody, myself if I'm working, or anybody else that may be working. You can ask for a supervisor and say, hey, I don't want to leave my name, but I know my son or daughter is going to a party tonight. I know my son or daughter bought alcohol at whatever convenience station, let's say. And that can be kept anonymous. And I can't tell you how that's invaluable. I've gotten dozens and dozens of phone calls that help us to enforce some of the underage drinking that takes place.
Well, listen, really thank you for coming in tonight and taking the time to discuss, you know, this wonderful program that's going on and all the hard work you guys are doing up there.
As you, I don't want to interrupt you, but as you, I mean, the Alliance for Safe Kids, we can't do it without you. You know, so this is an important group.
In our community, that's what teamwork's all about, and we see that with all of our nonprofits. We're all together. In fact, that's what this community is made of, is hardworking people that want that to be a success. But on behalf of the Alliance for Safe Kids, I'd like to thank you and all of the guys at the police department for all your hard work. And actually, thank you so much tonight for watching, and we will see you next week with a new program. Thank you.
It's a long road for you and me. It's a long road that I can see. How does it feel when you find out your love is real? And we both want the same thing. It's a long road